So our culture is a speaker-responsible culture. That means that the burden is on the speaker to be explicit about what it is they want you to know. But some cultures are listener-responsible cultures, like Asia. Many of the Asian countries are listener-responsible cultures. And in that kind of culture, the burden is on the listener to understand what is being said. And the speaker only has to indirectly indicate what it is that they want their audience to grasp. And the audience is expected to be able to pick up the rest. Speeches that are organized for a listener-responsible culture are organized in a different format than the linear format that we're used to. They're organized in a configural format. It's less explicit. It lacks hard evidence or proof that supports the position. It's more circular. It kind of dances around the position without ever really clearly stating it. Instead of previewing and discussing main points one at a time, configural thinkers approach their subject from a variety of different perspectives, using examples and stories to carry the crux of the message. Because configural speakers believe that the explicit stating of the message is absolutely unnecessary, they expect their receiver to understand more of the subtleties of their presentation. Instead of coming out and directly stating their conclusion, they're going to lead their receivers towards the conclusion indirectly and by implication, and trust the receiver to arrive at the conclusion on their own. That's a whole different kind of way to organize a speech, but it is common in Asia, and it may be helpful to you in certain situations. So let's talk about the three main types of configural organizational patterns. The first is the deferred thesis pattern. That's what happens when the main points gradually build up to the speaker's thesis, and the thesis is not given until the end of the speech. Rather than the linear format where we definitely know kind of about it, we tell what the thesis is, and then we build everything around that, and we come back to it at the end. But in this deferred thesis pattern, you start with your points and you arrive at your thesis. Another pattern that is used in a configural organizational pattern is the web pattern. The web pattern involves threads of thought that refer back to the central purpose. To the Western ear, it'll sound like the speaker keeps wandering off topic. They're supposed to be talking about this, but now they're telling a story about something completely unrelated. Like Jesus is supposed to be talking about the kingdom of heaven, but he's talking about a sower and seed. And so they keep wandering off topic. But the people that are used to this kind of a pattern, their intended audience, sees all these extra stories and seemingly unrelated episodes, incidents, and events that are being shared. They see them as reinforcing the main point. They're not divorced from the main point. They're just a circular way of getting to the main point. That's a web pattern. And finally, there is a narrative pattern. The narrative pattern involves a story or series of stories that are told without ever stating a thesis or developing any main points. Maybe think of Aesop's fables. The fables convey a point through the story. They don't have to tell you what the point is, and they don't have to tell you what the main support for that point is. The speaker will use illustrations, parables to get across a point that the audience is expected to be able to discern. Indirection and implication, rather than transitions, are used to circle around the idea and connect different things together to reinforce and establish the main point without ever explicitly stating it. And those things work together to lead the audience to a conclusion. It's a different way of organizing a speech, but there may be times when it works for you, so you should be aware of it. Now moving to chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about outlining your speech. Once you select the organizational pattern that best supports the subject matter of your speech, then you're ready to develop your outline. An outline helps organize and clarify your ideas. It guides you in deciding what material is important and what is not. It forces you to assess the relationships among your ideas. And when those relationships are clear, the audience is better able to process and think critically about the points you're trying to get across. So an outline helps you develop that organizational pattern that keeps you from looking like you're just kind of haphazardly wandering through the content of the speech. An outline also functions as a roadmap for your presentation. It helps you visualize how different parts of the speech will fit together. It ensures that every part of your speech has unity and coherence, and that your main points and your sub-points are well developed and well supported. And if you use it right, it'll hold your speech together and it'll draw your audience in. It is a powerful tool that can confirm for you the clarity of both the purpose statement and the thesis. It can critique your construction of your argument. It can help you see whether or not the main points, the sub-points, fit within, have logical flow within the argument. And finally, it can help you identify the places where you need to have transition statements or even signposts to let your audience be aware of where you're going with this speech. So the outline helps you control the development of your material and the flow of thought in your speech. It's key to create an outline that will be useful for you when presenting your speech. That outline should start as general ideas in a working outline and then be refined into specific statements in a full sentence outline. During that first stage, a preliminary working outline contains a few words that identify the key points of your speech. And they don't have to be real in-depth. They're not complete sentences. They're just thoughts. And maybe you draw a concept map and kind of relate those thoughts one to another and develop the flow of thought through the speech. That is a preliminary working outline, and it's the first step before you get to a full sentence outline. A full sentence outline is the second stage, and that outline is created after all your research is done and the ideas that are contained in your preliminary outline, your working outline, have been fleshed out, and now you have single sentences that kind of sum up what you want to say, and you put those into a full sentence outline. A full sentence outline should follow these criteria. First of all, it identifies the specific purpose and thesis statement, or the central idea of the speech. Secondly, it exhibits coordination and consistency. Third, it presents a visualization of the speech, distinguishing between main points and sub-points and demonstrating how they each directly support your thesis. Those ideas that function as support and amplification for your main topic are all spelled out in the outline. Fourth, it reveals a division of the whole speech. It shows how the speech is going to flow. It shows how your logical thought process is going to develop. Fifth, it exhibits parallelism. It shows that main points are parallel to one another on the same level, and subpoints are subordinate to them, and they are parallel to one another. It labels as well as indicates transitions between your introduction, the main points of the body, and your conclusion. And finally, it should identify the works that you've consulted, what's going to be in the contents of your bibliography. Now, you have an outline due this week. The last outline, if you turned in anything, you got 100. This outline is different. Now that you know from the book and from what we studied what it is that I expect from you, I'm looking for a full sentence outline as detailed in this chapter. Some of you did a full sentence outline last time, so you're already there. Some of you did not. It is critical. You're going to have a thesis, a purpose, a thesis, main points, Roman numerals, sub-points. You'll indent those. Show it to me the same way it appears in your book. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. You don't have to have the exact same number of main points and subpoints, but the format, the pattern is there, and you need to follow that. That's what I'm going to be looking for, and that's what I'm going to be grading you on the outline that is due this week.